everyone. Happy Monday in January. We are the Light Gate. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Roku, YouTube, Facebook, and many other different platforms. We have a wonderful guest tonight. We have lots of pictures, so those of you on radio with us tonight, we will endeavor to explain everything. I also want to let everyone know that we are in a part of the country right now that are being hit by hurricane force winds and very bad storms. We've done everything we can to remain online. We're off grid and our batteries are holding, but that doesn't mean the Wi-Fi will. If the Wi-Fi drops, don't run because our producer is going to graciously intercede and come on with us. And instead of Preston and I, and carry our guest all the way through. With that stated, let's get going. To you, Preston.
Thanks, Dolly. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on episode 37 of The Light Gate. We're just moving right along. I'm Preston Dennett, your host. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran, fully conscious UFO contactee, subject of my book, Symmetry. We have a really wonderful guest tonight who I'll get to in just a second, but I do want to say a quick hi to all you lovely folks here because it's because of you that we are able to do this show and are having so much fun talking to so many people who've had experiences, researchers, contactees, and all different kinds of interesting people. So big hello to you, Louise. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Lunar Dove, hello. And hi, it's Alicia. So glad you're ready. I'm ready too. I always get a little nervous. Don't know why. Been doing this for 35 years. I should be used to this by now. But whatever. Hello, Rat Food. Oh gosh, the Bayside Mall. Okay, if you want to ask about it, we can certainly comment on it. All questions are welcome. Hello, Ruth Kleiber. Thank you for joining us. Octopus with no friends. We'll have to get you some friends somehow, but we're certainly all friends here. Who else do we got going on here? UFOs, gods, and extraterrestrials. Dolly Safran is in chat. Look at that. Okay, I always mispronounce this, so I'm going to try real hard. Alalistar. There, I think I got it. Thanks for joining us. Namaste. Oh my gosh. You are just beyond generous. Thank you so much. Really, really helps out the show. Can't thank you enough. That is so awesome of you. Hello, Michael. Hope you are doing well. And Chris, pause. Teen.
Hi.
Thanks, Christine, for joining us. And Janice Conant, always nice to see you here. Oh, Lunar Dove, you guys feel so humble and warms my heart. Thank you so much for your generous contribution. Who else we got going on here? Videos from underground. Synthetic Nature, Raven's Cloud, the Empath. Oh, empathy is such an important quality. Hello, Brian. Thanks for joining us. Star Orchid, John P. Adventures. Gosh, we got a nice big crowd today, Dolly. Very excited.
Yes, thank you.
Allison Carr and Cheryl and lots of other people. Raul, you are so generous. Wow. You guys are just beyond amazing. Thank you so, so much. Hello, Jason Bardo and Susan Alloway. And here's another difficult to pronounce name, Digeskra. Hope I got that right. Dennis Whipple. Nice to see you here. AD Dances. Oh, I'm going to put that question on a star so we can get to it later. And Dana, thank you so much. Gosh, you guys, that is so awesome. And Real Badger. All right, that's enough. I don't want to waste any more time because our guest is so amazing. And in fact, let me put up the banner so you can get a little bit of a preview about who we have on tonight. It's a researcher I've been following for a very long time, and his name is Christopher O'Brien. And since 1992, Christopher has investigated, get this, over 1,000 paranormal events reported in the San Luis Valley, which is located in south central Colorado and a little bit in north central New Mexico. And boy, if you ever get a chance to visit the San Luis Valley, it's one of the biggest hotspots, really, definitely in the United States, but not the world. And not just UFOs, all kinds of really interesting stuff. Now, Christopher has worked with law enforcement officials, ex-military, ranchers, and an extensive network of skywatchers. And from 1992 to 2002, he documented one of the most intense waves of unexplained activity ever reported from a single geographic region of North America. And in fact, his 10-year investigation resulted in 3 books, the Mysterious Valley trilogy. First book's called The Mysterious Valley. I have it somewhere in my bookshelf. The second one is called Enter the Valley, which I have right here, actually, in my little hands. Secrets of the Mysterious Valley is the third. And there are other books. His meticulous field investigations of UFO reports and unexplained livestock deaths, Native American legends, cryptozoology, secret military activity, and the folklore is all found in the world's largest alpine valley and has produced one of the largest databases of unusual occurrences gathered from a single geographic region. He's currently working with a team of specialists installing a high-tech video surveillance and hard data monitoring system in and around the San Luis Valley. If you ever go to Colorado, you have to check it out. This is very close to where the UFO watchtower is located. Well, it is, by Judy Messeline. Christopher's 2009 book, Stalking the Tricksters, distills his years of field investigation and research into an ingenious, unified paranormal theory that is sure to create intense interest and controversy. And his latest book, Stalking the Herd, get this, 600 pages, you can use it for weightlifting, is being called, quote, the Bible of cattle mutilation books, and has received dozens of positive reviews. And it's the first book on the subject that objectively examines the unexplained livestock death phenomena, which remains one of the most perplexing mysteries of our times. Of course, in addition to his books, he's written many articles for such publications as Open Minds, Fate Magazine, UFO Universe. Oh, I missed that magazine. I used to get articles published in there too. But UFO Encounters and many others. And parenthetically, he's also an accomplished musician. Of course, he has many media credits, including Coast to Coast, pretty much all the other major radio shows and podcasts, and is a frequent guest on all kinds of television programs. You've probably seen him on Ancient Aliens, or Weird or What, Conspiracy Theory, UFO Hunters, and many others. I mean, he's worked with Sightings, Inside Edition, Extra, Showtime's Sci Friday Chronicles, UFO Files, Exploring the Unknown, the Unexplained, Secrets of, Profiles in Ufology, Unexplained Mysteries, and many others. I mean, I could go on. He's the recipient of 2 EBE Film Festival Awards. That's a very high honor for people in this field. And he has also hosted his own regional Colorado, New Mexico radio show called The Mysterious Valley Report. That was from 1996 to 1999. And of course, he's published the bi-monthly Mysterious Valley Report for about 7 years, 1993 to 2000. He's a very sought-after speaker at UFO conventions, so we are truly lucky to have him tonight. You can find his links in the description, but we've certainly got a lot to talk about, so let's just bring him on. Boom. Hi, Christopher. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, good to be here.
I'm excited. Yeah.
It's been a while since we talked, actually. I think last time was on the Paracast.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
I think pretty much that was it. Or I may have talked to you. No, I think we emailed back and forth about a case that you were working on, and or a case I was working on, I think, and I may have picked your brain on it. Occasionally we've run across each other online as well. So good to be here. I'm glad to hear that show's taken off, and hopefully we won't have any interruptions tonight.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
On the eye on the radar as we speak.
boy, you got a double barrel shotgun coming at you.
Well, weather these days.
Yeah,
It's really
the
unpredictable.
unexpected. Yeah,
I have been to the Mysterious Valley actually a couple of times with
Nice.
Stephen Greer held a couple of his groups up there. So I definitely was up there at least twice. And when I was a kid, we went to this great sand dunes.
yeah,
It's really a cool spot if you ever
yeah.
have a chance to.
That's about as spooky as it gets out there, boy.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I love it. I actually considered moving up there, but I just can't take the Colorado winters. I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, with me, it's the altitude now. I was just there doing a shoot with one of the popular shows that's on. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm never going to go back there and do a shoot in late or mid December at night. It was just brutal. I had, for the first time ever in all the hundreds and hundreds of shoots that I've done over the years, I've never walked off camera with cameras with a dedicated camera on me. I just had to walk off, and they were like, what are you doing? You can't do that.
Yeah.
Your
Your left hand is messing with your computer mic. I can hear it. Your left hand is too close to your computer mic.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I said, well, it was either that or have me on camera, control, with shivering uncontrollably. To take your pick. So I had to go warm up.
Wow.
It's not for the faint of heart. I mean, I saw 40 below in the valley, and that winter I saw 50 below.
Wow.
That was it outside of Gunnison after New Year's Eve. Actually, the first day of '91, we had 50 below zero in the Gunnison area. It's not for the faint of heart, and plus if you're faint of heart with things that go bump in the night, maybe it's not the best place to go either as well. So.
It's so beautiful though. I think of any state in the United States, Colorado takes first prize.
It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
Yeah.
It was great walking out on the porch and seeing that every day, seeing those sangres.
Yeah, I very seriously considered Crestone just because it's right there next to the National Forest. It's got Mount Blanca.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful place.
I did my 13 years there.
Yeah, I think we did. We may have met there briefly.
We did. That's I think the first time I actually met you was at one of Stephen's CE5 trainings.
Exactly.
Of course, I was the one that introduced him to the area, and have kind of regretted it ever since. I say that in it was some jest, but it was a bit of seriousness as well. When we lost Sherry Adamak, who's one of my closest and dearest friends, his managing director, the whole CSETI thing kind of lost its rudder, which she was very forceful and was the rudder of CSETI. Of course, Stephen was that big engine there pounding away below decks. But losing Cherry in '98 was a real blow, I think, to CSETI, and the old that big old tramp steamer that he was the engine for kind of lost its rudder, and I really have a lot of problems with many of the developments along the CSETI front that have occurred over the ensuing 30 years, and when people ask me about him, I don't like to slag people, but I do say that I feel that his message is way more important than he is.
Yeah, I agree.
So with, and some of the free energy devices that funding was solicited for and never produced, hoaxing sightings for events where people are paying money to be trained to do things and have hoax sightings. Well, let's put it this way: very well substantiated rumors of hoax sightings.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy surrounding all of it, but
yeah, he's definitely a lightning rod for a lot of stuff, and like I said, when he offered me a free membership, I don't know, it's probably '94. I told him I had to regretfully decline. He says, "Well, it's a lifetime membership. It's good. It's the highest level of memberships you can have." And I said, "I wouldn't, Stephen, I wouldn't be a member of any club that would have me as a member." So, borrowing the old Groucho line was my deferral to the much to Sherry's horror. She just assumed that I would take it, but I didn't. I saw the writing on the wall very early on. Anyway, moving right along. Yeah, Crestone, great place. Wouldn't want to try to survive on the local economy and live there. It's one of the poorest. Swatch County is one of the poorest counties in the United States. I think it's in the bottom 10. Usually it's top 10, right? Well, in this case, it would be the bottom 10.
Right.
I think it's only a few counties in Mississippi, I think, are have a lower per capita, I guess, income level is how they judge these things.
Must have a low population.
Yeah, it does.
One person for every 7 square miles.
Yeah.
It does
But
have
it's
a
a
very
cool place. I ate at the Roadkill Cafe there. So.
yeah. Used to be the only one of 2 restaurants in 60 miles. Well, no, I couldn't say that. About 30 miles. It's grown a lot. When I moved there, second night I was there, half the town showed up unannounced at my house for a party because they heard a musician had moved to town. And that's where I met some of my favorite people and best friends for a lot of years that night. And it was 155 people in the combined Crestone Baca Grande subdivision.
Wow.
And I think there's 100 times that now. No, there's well, it's not 100, but I think there's 10 times that about.
Wow. All right.
Maybe more, 3,000.
So what I'm really curious about, this is a question I like to ask all the guests, and I warned you about it. I'm curious about your childhood. Did you have any unexplained experiences?
I certainly did. I'm an experiencer. I had non-human entities follow me around my neighborhood at 3 a.m. in the spring of, not sure if it was 65 or 66. I was too young to really even think about writing these things down, but I was either turning 6 or 7 at the time, and it changed my life. It was probably one of the most important events in my life in terms of my reality view. I realized that reality wasn't everything that they were teaching me in school or learning about in Sunday school or reading about in books, and it did have a profound impact on me and my thinking. I became an instant closet UFO buff. I found out really quick that I should just keep my interests quiet, but I devoured every book that I could possibly find, every magazine article, every anything that had anything to do with non-human entities, supernatural, Ripley's Believe It or Not, all these types of things instantly became very important to me, and I always had my eyes out and my feelers out for information about these subjects. At the time, it wasn't so much UFOs or flying saucers as we knew them then. It was more sort of science fiction-y, but more along the lines of I factored all the paranormal subjects in as well.
No,
I
they're
didn't
connected.
know
Yeah.
what they were. They now would be considered rec- zeta reticuli grays or whatever, which I don't buy
Can
into
you
that.
describe them? I'm
They were
dying to see what you saw, hear what you saw.
my description of them. Uh, that following morning to my family was I was stalked and followed around my neighborhood by these impossibly skinny stick men with huge heads. And I don't recall their eyes. I think I kind of blocked out what their eyes looked like,
Mhm.
interestingly enough. But they were my height, what, 3.5, 4 feet tall.
Okay.
They were holding out in front of them the three that I could see. There was one that seemed to be taller in the back that was more in the darkness. I could sense something back there, but the three in the front were holding out in front of them. Um, the only way I can describe them was like light sticks. They had multicolored light shooting up and down inside, sparkling, and that was just enough light so that I could see that their arms and legs were like my thumb, and I it just was very unnatural and initially a little disturbing.
Did they follow you all the way home?
Well, I was in my bedroom. I ran upstairs to try to get
Ah,
to my
okay.
parents' room, and they either teleported ahead of me and were staying at the top of the second story stairs, or there was another group. But I left them behind me in my room and dashed up the stairs, hit the landing, and went up to go up the. We had a split level house, so the stairs to the upstairs there was about 5 stairs, I think, and they were already up there. And so I don't know if it was the same group or a different group. I have a feeling it was the same group. Of course, when I had woke up and saw them, I thought I was dreaming, and like any little kid will do, I'll hide under the covers, right?
How old were you?
I was 6, I think, getting ready to turn 7.
Wow.
Either that or I was 7. I had just turned 7, and so I ended up because they blocked my way up to my parents' room. They had an entrance to their bedroom in the backyard, and so I ran out the kitchen door. And what convinced me that I wasn't dreaming was I'd forgotten my dad had put the screen door on. It was like early spring. And I opened the door and ran out, and I ran right into the screen door and I think I ended up on my keister, basically. And I ran outside, and they were either already out there. There was some reason why I didn't go around the back. I ended up going down the driveway, going through the hedge to go to the Richards house, right next to our neighbors to the south. And I was going to, I banged on their door because I wanted to go in and use their phone and call. These thick men are after me.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
it sounds crazy now, but nobody seemed to be home, or I couldn't wake them up. So I looked down and I could see the tops of their heads. The Richards had a multi-tiered lawn that went down, and with garden beds, and I could see the tops of their heads, but they weren't bobbing. They were coming like gliding, uh,
Wow.
all in unison, and that kind of freaked me out. And so I ran out in the middle of the lawn, and I did my first experiment as a researcher. I stood out in the middle of the lawn and waited for him to get under the yard light that my neighbors had, and because I wanted to take a good look at them. And they disappeared when they entered the light. It's like they had turned sideways and had no depth to them, like paper dolls or something.
Weird.
And that's when I lost it and became officially terrified at that point. And all I remember is banging on the next neighbors over, the Barker's door, and banging and the light coming on, and that's the last thing I remember until my sister saved me. 5 houses away, 4 houses away.
Wow.
I don't know how I got there. I don't know how long the people inside, the barkers, they knew somehow that it was me. They could hear me, or they looked out and they saw me somehow. And they called my folks and said, your little boy is over here hysterical. And so my sister was the one that answered the phone. So she was the one that went out. She didn't tell anybody.
Wow.
She just came running over to save me from embarrassing myself. And of course, the official family story diverts there, and I was sleepwalking. I had a nightmare and all this, which I've never had anything remotely like that before. I've never sleepwalked
What
before.
city was this in?
Well, the thing that really struck my sister about how terrified I was by the time she ended up finding me, which she said was about 20 minutes later, I think it was longer, was that when I wouldn't go back down in my room. And so, my sister was 18, so she was just getting ready to go off to her first semester in college. And she said, well, you can come sleep with me and I'll keep you safe and everything will be okay. And, and I appreciated that. But she said, she didn't tell me this till years later, that I tried to nurse her when I was in bed. So knowing a little bit about child psychology and stuff, that's a really good indication of a very, very traumatic experience.
Wow.
Which has, like, I can almost say I remember it like it was yesterday. It was such a vivid experience, and anybody who's known me all these years, that's gotten close enough to me, knows the story and how much of a profound impact that it had on my life and my thinking.
Have you had anything remotely like that happen to you since?
I've had 6 hours of missing time in one case. I was out. Actually, it was the day before I went to Crestone for the first time. I was out in the Utah desert, and it was actually 2 days because I would have to count the night as well. I was sitting in a car, kind of standing guard with a rifle, because we had heard these weird kind of pitter-patter, what seemed to be pitter-patter footsteps outside that were going around the tent. I was with 2 city slickers who had never done any. It's the first time they'd ever been off, off the pavement. And we were in the middle of this, right smack by Factory Butte in one of the most desolate, remote areas of the United States in southern Utah. And they were just terrified enough being there, let alone hearing these little footsteps outside. And so I grabbed the mag light and the rifle, and I went out to see what was going on, and I couldn't see any footprints anywhere. And so I figured I'd go, listen to some tunes and kick back, and just the sky out there is just, I think it was a bit of a moon out, but not much. The sky was just absolutely gorgeous. Having been in New York and Boston for 14 years at that point, I wasn't used to seeing that real, glorious desert sky. And so I'm hanging out listening to some tunes, and I saw these something playing with me in the rear view mirrors of the car. And I'd look here and it would dip over here. I'd look here, and it would go the other way, and it was like almost like playing games with me. And so I rolled down the window and I turned on this big old, the largest of the cop flashlights, and I looked towards the back to see what it was, and I couldn't see anything. And so I just brought my hand inside, and then it was instantly, it was like the sun, it was 2 or 3 degrees above the horizon, and instead of it being 1:32 at night, it was like 6:37.
Yeah.
So wow. I think it was about 6 hour. I think we figured it out as 5 hours and 50 something minutes, just under 6 hours of time elapsed. And the flashlight should have been out, right? It was blazing like it had full batteries.
What did you think of that? I mean,
I turned the music down because I was listening. So I don't have any reference with the music that was playing. I think I was listening to a cassette. It shows you how long ago this was. This was April '89. My butt didn't hurt. I didn't have any weird recurring dreams of. That one right over your guys' head.
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
It's whenever
Probing.
these
Yep.
types of events occur, it's we're doing butt stuff now, right? No, I didn't. In fact, I forgot about it until my brother reminded me of it when I started, researching and running around investigating cases. And he reminded me of it. Like I remember, got just cold sweats thinking about going, oh my God, yeah, I forgot about that.
Wow.
And so other than that, that's it. Those are my only. I've seen tons of UFOs, dozens.
From childhood or until you moved to Colorado?
My first sighting was up in New Paltz, right during a key weekend when Whitley had some stuff go on up there. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I was with a group that had a multi-witness sighting up there, and then nothing until it would have been 91. I had a couple of things that I couldn't explain. I called them cheap fireworks. They're some sort of atmospheric. I think they're a natural piezoelectric effect from the quartz in the mountains there in Colorado. People say, well, you don't know the difference between a meteor and a true atmospheric anomaly. And it's like, well, how do you explain seeing one arcing out over trees going out into the valley, lighting up the tops of the trees, and there's a uniform overcast sky? It's not a meteor. I've had people call me and report them, and one guy said, I know it's going to sound kind of strange, but I swear Tinkerbell just crashed in the backyard. I don't know what they are. They look like fizzling out fireworks, large, like big bottle rockets that are fizzling out. I've had them seemingly within feet of me. I've seen them, many times within a mile away. That including that one time where they actually lit up the tops of trees, and I was looking down at them because I was about 100 feet above them. I was in the foothills looking down out into the valley. So
that was shortly after you moved over there, right?
That would have been right about 2 years I'd been there. I think at that point, the first one I saw right after I moved there. I did see one, and that's when I dubbed them cheap fireworks. I said, somebody's shooting out fireworks, come out quick, because I thought it was going up, and I thought we were going to see a big sheen, and have the wonderful flower and my housemates came running out, and they said, "Well, okay, what?" And I said, "That's gonna it went shooting up right here. Someone's shooting out fireworks, and they look like kind of like when you go to see fireworks and you can see they're shooting up, and it's before they explode, but you can kind of see a rocket going up. That's what they look like.
I wonder if that is piezoelectric, because there's the Brown Mountain lights and the Marfa lights, which I think are pretty much
different. No,
yeah, they're different.
Yeah, those are close to the ground. They're generally location specific. These things, you can see them anywhere, going in any direction. They're different colors. They have different durations of how long they're visible. They're always moving quickly, except occasionally when they're shooting down and they appear to be coming at you, then they don't really move that much. They just flare and get larger. They're different.
Yeah, it seems to be,
those are anomalous lights.
Seems to be pretty much confined to that area, because I don't hear other areas.
I've seen them further south in New Mexico. I've seen them once or twice in something, if not that, something similar around Four Corners. But yeah, it does seem to be something that's more. It's more along the Sangres, where you have the second largest rift valley, the thrust fault
Wow.
there, and also of course, all the amazing quartz deposits that are in the mountains. I've seen the quartz actually discharge all the way up the range at one time.
Oh, wow.
But that's when it's super cold and super dry, single digit humidity. When if you're scuffing on the ground, the quartz on the ground will even spark just in the dirt.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, Tesla supposedly was going to go study him, but he never made it down from Cripple Creek. He had heard about the blue light that would shoot up from the mountaintops. So yeah, that's kind of how my investigator side started, really becoming extra vigilant when I started seeing these things. And then when I had my first daylight sighting, that was the crucial one, because it was only 150 feet away, 50 feet off the ground, went right in front of the car. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, absolutely impossible to not to see
What did
it.
it look like? I mean,
And it looked like something out of the Jetsons. It looked like a little airplane with no real tail on it. It had like something back there, but it was going so fast, it was hard to determine whether it was a cupola or maybe a tail or some sort of bulge from the top of it.
Yeah.
It
Michael
looked like,
Surratt has pictures of that. Yeah.
yeah. I did a complete research project trying to find any sort of UAV that at the time in '92 would have had the same sort of look as this thing that I saw. I wasn't driving, so I got a chance to look at it the whole time. It was visible for about 7 or 8 seconds as it shot across the Huerfano Valley, which is the valley over the other side of the Sangre de Cristos to the east. And it's also a low level flight operations area. So I always assumed, assumed at the time, that the La Vida MOA, military operations area, which is where we train all our Air National Guard pilots, and we rent out the airspace to other nations' air forces. The Israelis train there, the Germans, there's others that have been there training. But I just assumed, since it was a military operations area, that it was something, maybe secret, but not high strange. Although looking at it shoot out across the Huerfano, it looked like somebody reeling in a fishing lure, where you reel in the lure real fast and it kind of skips, kind of how similar to what Kenneth Arnold, called the saucer skipping on a pond. It had that kind of action, but it was skipping like this, away from me, and it was skipping, kind of staying on the same level horizontal plane, but there was variation. It was dipping and shooting up and diving down, but moving away really fast. And that was September '92, and then that was right at the beginning of one of the, I think, heaviest periods of activity any region that I know of has ever seen. At the height of it, 5 years later, I got 17 sighting report calls in a single day, 5 different events, 17 witnesses, which was the height of it when it really. When I was calling people saying, "You guys, I need you here. I need help."
When did you start officially investigating? I mean,
well, it was the 200-foot ovals coming down over town and going out over the valley at in the at nighttime. That out of 155 people, 18 people saw these things, as it turns out. And unfortunately, I wasn't one of them. I was gigging with my band in some little town across the valley, and I didn't get a chance to see them. But that was December 9th, '92, which would have been 3 months after my daylight sighting. But I had a New Year's
There's
Eve
your
party.
band, by the way.
No, that's
Right?
5 bands later.
Oh, okay. That one?
No, that's the band that I'm currently in. It's
Okay.
not 30 years ago. I looked way different back then.
All right.
Um, uh, no, it was right in '93 then that I started seeing things, myself, and I started investigating as well. But I had a New Year's Eve party, New Year's Eve '92, and at one point, everywhere I went in the party, little groups of people were all talking about a UFO sighting, and so I kind of started listening in, and it was obvious that they were talking about the same thing, but none of them knew that other people, said, "Oh, you saw it, really? Oh, man, I thought I was the only one," and I go in the next room, and I'd see the identical conversation take place. I go into another room, and the same thing was going on.
Wow.
It turns out there were 12 people at the party that had seen these objects, and another 6 that I found on top of that, from referrals by people that were in the party. And so that's when I started my investigation that night. I thought, hey, one of the people said, "Oh, they had a mutilation that night down in Costilla County," and I was like, "Well, that's it. I'm going to write an article about this. This is too good to pass up." I was going to write a jokey article about all the old retired hippies are all having this, spontaneous acid flashback altogether. I was going to kind of do a funny, the kind of thing that I very soon after hated when the media. I was going to do that and poke fun at all these people and stuff. And I had 2 weeks before I had to turn the article in, so I started digging into the newspaper archives and sheriff's department's reports, and the sociology department at the local university, and some of the people that were involved in aviation and the military in the area and stuff. And I had enough material in 2 weeks to write my first book. It was just unbelievable, the amount of stuff that I discovered and uncovered. That I can't really say I discovered it. I just uncovered it. That with a little just rudimentary journalism. I just pre-internet. I was going through newspaper archives and sheriff's files. And because quite a number of these individuals had also seen things, they had kind of made note of where some of these files and stuff were. So it was easier for me to even more so to get this information, because there were some people that kind of secretly had a fascination with all this stuff, and especially Dr. Lynn Weldon at Adams State College at the time. He had been saving articles since the 50s about stuff that happened in the valley, and
Oh, wow.
and so I just had all these people, Linda Moulton Howe, Tom Adams, Gary Massey, Leo Sprinkle, just a bunch of people. They found out somebody was living in this valley where Snippy the horse happened and all these sightings happened. That finally somebody's there that can run around and check all this stuff out and investigate it. I had so many people helping me out simply because I was there.
Amazing.
And I was the first person since the 70s that had even expressed any interest in the stuff. And so I had all these, big brothers and a big sister to help me, bring me up to speed, and, how to properly investigate, how to properly interview people. And I mean, all this in 2 weeks. It was just amazing. And my article, instead of being 500 words, it was 1,500 words. And it got picked up by all the news wire services. So instantly
Amazing.
I was on Unsolved Mysteries 2 months, 6 months later. They came 2 months later to film me, because, I was running around checking all this stuff out, looking like I knew what I was talking about, because I'd had, 20, 30 years of experience reading these books and knowing the subject, matter inside out. But at this point, I'd read all of Kiel, all of LA, think I might have even read one of your books by that point. When was your first book out?
Oh gosh, 1996.
Okay, so it was before that, but
But I was definitely publishing articles at the time, and we
yeah,
were
yeah,
in
yeah.
UFO Universe was definitely where I
Antonio
got my start.
Jimenez. I'd read some of his stuff, Bob Ecker, and Vicky, some of their stuff. Timothy Good's stuff, Frank Strange's, Scully, all the classics. So with that sort of immersion in the subject matter, and with the help of real professional researcher investigator types, I was brought up to speed incredibly fast. And so when that first article came out, it was like I couldn't believe how many people tried to contact me. And this again is all pre-internet.
I
Lou,
remember those
Lou,
days. Yep.
Lou Farish's news clipping service. It came out in that. I had to get a larger mailbox at the post office because of all the mail I was getting.
Wow.
And I was getting reporters from Europe, South America. When the Associated Press, United Press International, and Reuters pick up a story, that used to be the way that you got the word out, is to somehow get the news services to pick up your article. I didn't know that they had picked it up, and so I couldn't figure out how do all these people think
Back in those days, newspapers, they're a little bit more open to UFO articles too.
Well, the Crestone Eagle only had 250 subscribers.
Wow.
And so I found out that AP picked it up, and because they did, everybody else did. So
amazing. You kind of dived right into the deep end there.
yeah, really. You said a good thing. I was used to being on stage and having people looking at me while I'm having to perform and come up with parts and stuff. And so I kind of took to it pretty well. And at the time I was a good looking rock and roll dude. So it all was perfect fodder for the for the shows and the magazines and stuff. And I ended up having to move because of it. When van loads of Japanese tourists are stopping outside of your house in the middle of BF nowhere and photographing your house and then zipping off before that you can run out and chase them away.
Wow.
You know that you've become the story.
What was your most fascinating case in those days? Which one
It's impossible.
stopped you and made you think? No?
No. What's the best fizzy you've ever had, or what's the best cupcake have you ever had? That's why I write books. It's impossible. I've had scary cases. I've had, it's just I really can't answer that.
Did you ever have one that just made you want to stick through it even longer? Like there was just more to the story and you wanted to, lay your hands on more information, that kind of a thing?
Well, Snippy the horse. Yeah, Snippy the horse. Out of all the cases that I researched, I mean, that would be the one, because I saw the International Enquirer front page in the fall of '67 with the headline, the quotes from Nellie Lewis saying "Flying saucers killed my horse." And when I saw that, boy, I threatened my mother with everything that I could think of that I wouldn't get grounded or spanked if she didn't give me 50 cents so I could buy the Enquirer.
Oh, wow.
And she absolutely refused to buy that magazine, any magazine but that, she hated the Enquirer. And the
It was one of the only ones that would publish that kind of story.
It was. And it was I think it was it Bob Pratt? No, I think it was even before him. I talked her into it. I threatened to go on strike and not do my chores. I used every means of manipulation in my power as a 10-year-old. That was also a very major point in my life, because I remember thinking, wait a minute, if these little guys or what I saw are from these craft, and these craft are coming down and doing that to a head of livestock. All bets are off. We really need to be paying attention here. And I remember devouring that article, and I dragged it. I still had it by the time I got to college.
Wow.
So
what at what point did you decide, you know what, I need to write a book about all of this? I mean, here's your first book right here. Let me see, pull that up. This was your first book, right?
Yeah, and it went through 10 printings. It was quite a good seller for St. Martin's Press. I mean, I got a major publisher deal. Like I said, right around the end of those, when all those letters and all the interest came in, that combined with all the information that I was able to uncover so quickly, that convinced me that not only was the subject incredibly visceral and powerful, but a lot of people were interested in potentially the things that were going on in the San Luis Valley, and there was just so many good reports and good documentation, stuff that you could sink your teeth into. And my first 2 books, I got 157 release forms signed, legal forms, people saying you can use my name, including 15 law enforcement officials.
Wow, that's pretty unusual back then.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
And I people found out right away that I was honest, that I didn't embellish, that I wasn't out to sensationalize, that I honored requests for anonymity, that I credited my sources, and people just opened up to me, whether it was the local UPS driver with incredible sightings that he videotaped, that he said he was never going to show the videotape to anybody but you, I'll show it to.
Wow. So do you remember any specific cases that stick out, like landings or any?
Yeah, the landing out at Valley, it's called Joyful Journey Hot Springs, but back then, before it got built up, and when it was just a concrete hole in the ground, it was called Mineral Hot Springs, right where the 2 main roads in the valley come together and converge and go out the southern end of the valley, right near where Robert, the guy that wrote the UFO and Nukes book.
Hastings.
Robert Hastings lives within just a few miles of there. There was a landing there, and the one thing that I really regret never getting is a copy of the footage. My brother saw it, and by the time I heard about it, I had been gone. I came back to the valley and saw the footage that he had taken, which was quite amazing. My brother described it. The guy that was with him described it. Evidently, the caretaker out at the hot springs, she had seen these lights come down pretty close, a couple hundred yards, I think, away, 300 yards maybe away from the building that the caretaker lived in, with no electricity or anything, real rustic. And she went out the following morning, and there was a landing, what appeared to be landing traces there with a blast hole, and there was a snake in the blast hole,
Wow.
standing on its tail with its head kind of checking out, towards the rim of the hole. And an NBC cameraman named Steve Jambeck actually videotaped it when he and this guy heard about it. He went out there, and not thinking that the snake would be there. They thought there was just some aberration.
The vibrations brought it up. The snake was probably looking around going, what the heck?
Well, the snake was there for 3 days, if I remember.
Yeah,
and my brother thought
you'd be looking every day too.
He went out there thinking, "Oh, it's never going to be there," and it was there.
That's crazy.
Animals are funny that way. I'm not kidding.
Well,
it's really out of the ordinary. They're like,
snakes can stand on their tails.
They're periscoping is what I call
so
it.
So that was a good one. And then later, this is quite interesting. Later, I got my first real abduction case in, let's see, this landing would have been the summer of 92.
Okay, well, can you hold on for a second
Sure.
before we get into that? Because I do need to take a quick station ID break.
Okay.
And I just want to let you all know that you are watching The Light Gate. I am your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. This is episode 37. And our guest tonight is Christopher O'Brien, an experiencer, author, researcher, one of the experts on UFO waves, and certainly in the San Luis Valley, also on unusual animal deaths. He's been the go-to guy for many, many years. And we are airing live on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans, in Louisiana. Also, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM. Of course, on several other platforms such as YouTube and Roku and Facebook. So thank you all for joining us. We're now starting our second hour. If you have any questions, please be sure to put them in chat and we will get to them if we can. We already have a couple lined up, so thank you for that. And yeah, I am excited to hear about some of these
We haven't even
more
gotten into
sensitive cases.
We're still stuck them before I even started investigating.
But yeah, I mean,
not many people ask me about the early stuff. I don't get a chance to talk about these things very often. I haven't talked about that snake in the blast hole weirdness for, and that.
Well, I loved your book, by the way, and the follow up to it. I mean, this is riveting stuff.
In Mysterious Valley, it's in there.
And it's not just UFOs. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff.
Oh my God!
I mean, there's a lot going on there. But
the second book is a lot of the research that I did, which uncovered the treasure legends and the weird aberrant social behavior and the strange weather and weird things that happened in the area over the years. Folklore, phantom trains and haunted sites and
the Thunderbird. I remember a couple of Thunderbird stories.
Bigfoot stuff.
Native American legends.
All that stuff. Yeah, and like I said, I had uncovered enough in 2 weeks to write 2 books, which I ended up, I tried to, they said, when I sent off my proposal, I didn't send off the chapters or even the names of the chapters of all the research. I just sent out all the, the current stuff. But I'd also, did a whole book basically on all the research of the treasure legends, haunted sites, Native American stuff, Bigfoot, all the religious miracles, just all that type of stuff. I wanted it to have it in my first book, but they only contracted me for 70,000 words. And they said, when they got the manuscript, they said, what part of 70,000 words did you not get? We didn't ask for, a 700-800 page book. Here's how this is going to go. It can go one of two ways. Either we take out 70,000 words and decide that that's going to be your first book, or you can. Which would you rather it be?
How hard was that for you? When Preston writes, if he has to erase or get rid of anything, he almost cries. He's like, my babies, my words, oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah. That was rough.
Yeah.
But, I got, not all of it, but I got a lot of it in the second book. So,
Wow.
So it worked out well. The second book didn't take long to write. Let's put it that way.
So yeah, tell us about some of the onboard experiences where people are taken on board. Or
well, yeah. I was talking about the Valley Mineral Hot Springs. This woman, I got referred to the case by the county sheriff, and the dispatcher there had been asked to call me and give me this woman's contact information because they felt that she needed someone to talk to, and she was really unwilling to reach out to anybody herself. And her friend, the dispatcher, said, I'm going to give your name to this guy. And she had heard about me, but then she with quite a bit of reluctance, she agreed to sit down and talk to me. And good thing she had a journal, because some of her journal entries lined up perfectly with sighting events that happened in the valley, which was real good confirmation for me, because her story was so wild. It was difficult for me to believe some of it. She was part of a third. She was the third generation experiencer. Started with her grandmother, possibly earlier than that. She grew up in Denver. She had gone down to the valley pretty early on, and the phenomenon followed her. She was in a personal relationship with one of her abductors, and she said that they actually became lovers, and she became impregnated by this alien gray, if you will, a tall gray. And she said that to get over the difference in body types between the two of them, he would wear capes. And she really liked it. She loved it when he wore his golden cape, because she said it was like Golda Meir. She said because it reminded her of Elvis, which is one of the most bizarre quotes I've ever heard from a.
There are lots of accounts of people seeing capes on entities. I mean, if you go through the literature.
Oh yeah, there's tons.
That does turn up.
Yeah, a Golda Meir cape that made it look like Elvis. I almost lost my coffee when I was drinking coffee when she mentioned that. I almost spewed it all over the table. She said that. She says, you know where 285 and 17, state highways come together, and then you draw a straight line to the mountains. Mm-hmm. There's some deposits of, what did she call it? She called it trilithium that's there. And I said, well, you mean lithium? No, it was like three lithium. And I said, so it wasn't dilithium like in Star Trek. She goes, no, I never seen that. I never watched that show. I said, well, in Star Trek, there's dilithium crystals, which are used as a power source. She goes, no, she says she's positive that they would come down and they would get trilithium there. And she didn't know that Valley View Hot Springs is 98% lithium water, which at least she claims she didn't. Not many people know that. Back then, prior to the California folks coming in and building it up and making a big deal out of it, back then it was just 140-degree water that you hoped that it had run long enough so it cooled off so that you could get into it.
140 degrees, wow.
Well, it comes out of the ground at 140, and then it runs down a kind of it's almost a permanent sort of pipeway that runs from the source to the actual tubs where they have the hot springs. And by the time it gets there, it cools off quite a bit. But back in the old days, you could go all the way up there and it would be too hot to get in.
Are you talking about where is this with again? What state?
Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They have something like that up in Warm Springs, Georgia, too.
And lithium hot springs are
really for therapeutic reasons. Yeah,
they were prized all the way back. The Egyptians and the Greeks talk about hot springs that turn out to be lithium. Let's put it this way: whenever we would all agree that we were going to go up there and somebody was going to drive, we would have to do rock, paper, scissors to just figure out who was going to drive, because nobody liked to drive once you've been up there, because once you just a half hour soaking in there, and it's not by accident that they use lithium to sort of sedate people.
Yeah, lithium. If you're bipolar, they use lithium on people, and it is sedative. It's very much a sedative.
Yeah, it's like doing drugs, going in that.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
and nobody liked to drive afterwards. And so we would literally, we would argue about who was going to drive, who was going to drive, I should say. So anyway, that particular case, getting back to your question, that was an important case early on with the snake and all that, and Sally, the wonderful woman that lived at the hot springs then, who died an unfortunate early death. She was just so matter of fact about it. It was like, oh yeah, we see lights like that out here, pretty much all the time. And I'm like, what? You've only lived out here for 3 or 4 years? Yeah, we could see lights out here pretty much all the time that I've been here. And the other people that lived out there as well had stories and stuff. And but at the time, I hadn't really caught the bug yet. It wasn't until I had my daylight sighting, and we had that major sighting of the 200-foot ovals and the mutilation happening the same night. That's what really kicked it off for me, and so for the next, well, from 92 to 2002, man, I was full time. I put 300,000 miles on my car or my truck in
smokes.
in 6 years. It was, well, I was also gigging too, so you got to factor some of that in. But when you're covering a 10,000 square mile valley, you tend to put miles on your vehicles.
10,
I was 60 miles from the nearest stoplight.
So what do you think it is about that valley that is the draw for so much
I have no
UFO
clue. I have no clue. It's the same, why when you go to a town and you go to the highest house on the highest hill, does it have 1,000 bees nests? I think it's the same kind of answer. It's America's attic. It's the backbone, the spine of America, and it's the high ground. It's like the highest house in the town. All the bees want to be there because it's unobstructed, flight paths to wherever they want to go. I painted the highest house in Somerville, Mass, which is the suburb directly north of Cambridge. And my brother and I had a painting company for a couple of years, and we painted. We started painting the house, and we realized we just couldn't paint it because there were so many wasp and hornet and some bees nests. The bees tended to be the houses a little bit lower. They get chased away by the real nasty aggressive bees, but they pulled 500 nests out of that one house.
Jeez, I didn't even know that was possible.
Took the bee man. Well, it was a big Victorian, 4 stories. It was a huge house. It's the high ground. I think that there's something to that spine of America. Why the Rocky Mountains tend to have a lot of sightings. I think that could be one of the reasons. Is it's the high ground. I also think it's very similar to the physical makeup of Wiltshire in England and other hotspot areas where you have alternating layers of water, mineralized water, and clay and sand in alternating layers. It's almost like you're creating a huge natural battery that could be some sort of energetic characteristics.
Well, that's an interesting observation because, Topanga Canyon, where I grew up, ended up being a major hotspot, and we have that, a big aquifer, lots of clay, huge quartz deposits.
Yeah. Any place you have those things and a major earthquake fault, anytime you have those elements, you're going to have a hotspot area. I have it's kind of it's sort of a short list of things to look for if you want to become an investigator. If you can find an area that has those following elements there, that chances are, I'd bet money that if you start digging, you're going to have just a wealth of research material to refer back to of this types of activity and haunted sites and other things, Native American sacred sites, potential ley line or earth energy type
Yeah, well, that was
phenomena.
one of the really interesting things I thought about your research, is looking back into the whole history of the place with the Native Americans and the ant people coming out from the sand dunes, I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
So, yeah. And it's not only UFOs. I mean, do you think it's all connected, the religious miracles and all the
Yeah,
ghost
I do. I
activity and
do.
all the.
I do. I think it's as each kind of generation of people cycle through a place, they put their own interpretation based on their level of technology and their understanding of technology that they're going to be placing, a up to speed, up to date interpretation of what they're seeing with their descriptions. What we're flying seed pods and flying shields and flying spears and canoes in Native American lore are now our modern, flying saucers, whatever type of craft that you want to describe. Of course, Jacques Vallée's most important book, I think, Passports of Magonia, uh, goes into this whole idea that these elementals, these leprechauns, these fairies, these trolls, um, lekes. It depends on whatever culture you go to. There's always stories of this kind, and that's what my Stock in the Tricksters book is about. You're always going to have these trickster forms that fly around, abduct you, bugger your cattle, create all sorts of havoc in your life if you're not in tune with them. And it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to find these shapeshifters, and that's what ties them all together, is that they have the ability to shapeshift. And it was not I the first time somebody did it, it kind of sat me back in my chair, but I got used to people calling up from the Hispanic south end of the valley, calling up to report a UFO sighting, but they are reporting a witch.
Huh.
And that's how witches would fly around in the valley, according to traditional folklore. As if they were in a hurry, they would get into a fire bowl, transmute themselves, and shapeshift into an energy form that they called fireballs, and that they would shoot across the desert in various configurations of fireballs. And that's how they, if they had to get from point A to point B quickly, they would do that. If they weren't in a hurry, they'd be a raven. you know.
Wow.
So yeah, I think that there's a direct correlation between the type and amount and intensity of folklore of an area and its how much of a hotspot area for UFO activity it is in the current time frame.
Yeah, well, there was certainly some of that going on in Topanga Canyon. I noticed there was a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of ghost activity. There was a religious miracle spot down in Malibu nearby.
well, yeah,
There's a
didn't
lady who described a ghost dog with
who was it?
full
David.
squats.
He was camping in his parents' backyard, David Sereda, and said a ball of light came into his tent and became Jesus and anointed him or something.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. I hadn't
yeah,
heard that one.
yeah,
I
David
know
Sereda.
David Sarita. Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
Sereda, yeah, yeah. I had him tell me the story. So,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
that is
that's where he
it's
got his
wild.
whole interest.
Well, I remember one of the cases in your book, which interested me particularly. I don't know if you remember in any detail, because when you do this stuff and you have case after case after case,
I
it's a
also have a
little bit overwhelming.
semi-photographic memory too.
But you called her Barbara Bonara, I believe, and it interested me because she was healed of
Yeah,
cancer, I
her
believe.
name actually was um, she finally died of a bad case of lupus brought on by Lyme disease. But
Oh, wow.
she claimed, and she had been sick with cancer and had been undergoing some treatment for it, but they had said that it was too advanced and that there was no point in continuing it. And she healed after these supposed encounters with the little brothers, I think was how she called them. Her name was Owlish, and she was part Native American and had been married to the custodian of Cisnagini, who was the Navajo custodian that would help Navajo do vision quests there. Had a couple kids with him, and then he freaked out. He couldn't take it, and she didn't want to leave. He wanted to leave, and so she was there. And this was right about the time I met her in 90, and she was my girlfriend at the time was doing some healing work and helping her out and stuff. And that's when she let it slip to her that she had these visitation events happen, and including one that happened right during the time that I knew her, where she was dropped off at the end of what people commonly refer in the neighborhood there as Two Trees Road, all the way out in the valley next to where the old Baca Grant ended and the Baca Ranch began. Yeah, that was one of my atmospheric friends, as I like to call my ungrounded kind of new age Crestone friends. She was one of my atmospheric friends, and she actually did very well for a number of years after that. And then she said that her contacts had by about a year after the first book came out, she said that they inexplicably had stopped, and she didn't know why. She said they had been fairly frequent, but the contacts ended, and then within 2 years, and she started slipping. I don't know if it's
Wow.
We'll figure if there's some sort of correlation time wise, but she was a very sweet lady, and she raised some really nice kids.
It's very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of healing cases. So I'm always interested in that aspect of it.
Yeah. It's if I hadn't known her, I probably wouldn't have given her the time of day. But because I did know her, and my girlfriend and her were real good friends, and she confided in her. It was kind of one of those things that was sort of a secret, and then it's like, "Are you sure you don't want Chris to know?" And okay, well, you can tell him. It was kind of like one of those type of deals. And of course, when I said I was writing a book, she freaked out and said, "There's no way you can use my name." And
so that makes you wonder just how much you're not hearing about. If you're getting all of these reports out of one area.
You asked me if I had any other encounters. I do think I had one. I think I had a whole group of them come through my wall into my room, but they were invisible. Like just the other side of invisible, because I definitely kind of caught some ripples in the air, almost like heat waves coming in when they came in, and I could have sworn I saw a shoulder
Dimensional rift, fourth dimensional rift.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, if you want. Although I wouldn't go with a dimensional thing. I think it's more of a vibrational, a frequency. They were just slightly out of phase with our particular limited frequency realm that we can perceive. But there was no question in my mind something was there, and every hair on my body stood up, and I even at one point felt that there was one that was right in my face that leaned down and got in my face, and I wanted to wake up my girlfriend. In fact, I did. She didn't particularly notice anything, and she was quite sensitive. And then they left. They were only there for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, if I remember. And I remember I wrote it down. I was so struck by it. I said, "There's no way that." I hadn't been asleep. I was kind of tossing and turning, wanting to go to sleep at the time. And
What year was that?
I'd have to look. I think 94 maybe. Um, I don't quite remember the date on that, but what I do remember is I did write the date down. I did write a description, and 2 weeks later, a woman said, "Have you talked to so and so, who was my next door neighbor? Have you talked to her? She had a visitation." And this woman was married to a very, very famous psychiatrist, author, uh, who was much younger than he was, world famous guy, who I cannot use his name. And they had a little son. And then shortly thereafter, he died. He was quite actually pretty old at the time, with this young wife, 40 years younger than him. And so they had a little boy who was gifted, and he was at one point, right around this time period, he was 5, and he was saying, "Mommy, the earth's going to shake again today, and somewhere there'll be a major earthquake." And somehow she was convinced. She started writing all his prophecies down, and within days or hours, he would always be right on. And so anyway, this woman friend of hers heard this story, and she says, "You have got to talk to Chris. He may know something." And she said, "No, I don't want to talk to him. He's the last person I want to talk to. If this gets out, it could be terrible." She was so nervous about being public, and so she said, "Well, let me talk to him and see what he has to say, and I won't tell him who it is." And I absolutely guaranteed, her anonymity, and that I would honor her request for anonymity, and I wouldn't violate that. So she agreed to tell me because it was such an important event. She said that a group of these little grays came in, and she said they totally ignored her, but they were absolutely fixated on her son, who was in his little bed. And she said that they were not all there when they came through the wall. She could see through them, and they came in, and she could see through them, but they seemed to be a lot more present, but they weren't totally invisible. And she surrounded her. She went and got her son. They moved out of her way. If I remember, she got her son, and surrounded him and herself with white light, and basically just kept saying over and over again, if I remember correctly, if you're not in the light, leave. Let us be protected. And so all of a sudden, I said, "Well, wait a minute, when did this happen?" And she goes, "2 weeks ago." I went, "Oh no, it happened 20 minutes after my event happened." They came and visited me, and then they went to the next house up the hill from me, to this lady's house, and that's pretty. It's beyond coincidental, I think.
Wow.
So they came and checked in on me. It's all in the book. Whatever I wrote in the book is right from my my notes. Like I said, I have a semi photographic memory.
Well, I just got a message on Facebook from Dennis Whipple, who says that my first sighting in 1976 was a ball of yellowish orange light off to our right at night while driving through San Luis Valley. Stayed with my friend and I for at least 5 solid minutes, then just went out. Told you this, Chris, at MUFON, and you said, "Yes, you and hundreds of others."
Yeah.
It's amazing that there's so much confirmation to a lot of the cases you investigate. You talk to one person and everyone else is like, "Well, I saw that too."
Yeah. Oh my God. You go to the valley now, and everybody goes, "Oh, we don't have anything happen here since you left." They were coming here checking you out, and you're the reason why all this stuff happened. And then you talk to somebody else that hadn't just moved there within the last 10 years, and they go, "Oh yeah, stuff goes on, but not like it was in the 90s." I
Did
mean,
you
in
ever
the
have
90s, it was nightly. I had 5 sightings myself personally, 5 sightings in one single 24-hour period. I think it was my record. And like I said, there were 17 reports, 17 phone calls.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask everybody who has something in common with you. Do you consider yourself psychic?
Not really. I feel I've been around this stuff so much, in and out, throughout my life. I've been to some of the most haunted sites in America. I could go down the list of, my bucket list of things that I've done and experienced. And I wouldn't say I was psychic. I would say that I have a really finely tuned antennae. And it's
You mean
more than a few
intuition?
Yeah, it's intuition, and it's also a physiological sensory device. I mean, I can tell when there's something going on.
That's what makes you psychic. You have a pineal gland in your head, and that's your connection
Possibly,
to it.
yeah, possibly. I can't look at somebody and go, "Oh my God, quick, go home, you're gonna die." Don't go home now, you're gonna die.
Yeah. Well, everybody has varying degrees of ability. If you exercise it, you can develop it. That's the point.
Yeah, and I have done some of that. I have a pretty extensive magical training, Western esoteric tradition, and other types of energetic manipulation, and the ability to perceive particular types of energy. I've been trained as a remote viewer. I could go down the list of things
that would definitely make you psychic. Okay.
It doesn't make you psychic.
You can do it because you're psychic. It's like a checklist. It's like, can you do this? Yes. This.
Yeah. I can see why you would say that. I don't claim to be psychic. We'll put it that way. I was a professional tarot card reader. I learned tarot when I was a kid from my adopted mother. She taught me, pendulum dowsing, and she dowsed my brother as well.
Okay.
She was an incredibly gifted dowser, better than the professional dowsers that the Rocky Mountains are known for. The water witches. Every single people don't know this.
Your family, in other words.
People don't know this, but boy, if you want to drill a well in the Rockies, you got to have a really good water witch, because you don't want to spend money to go down 200 feet and not have a dry well. You need to have somebody that can tell you where there's water. And when the water witch came out to do my brother's house, he said 60 feet you're going to hit good water, or no, he said 68 feet you're going to hit good water, and you're going to have to go down to about 80 or so. And my mother had already been out and doused the property and had told him he's going to hit really good clean water at 60 feet, right in the exact same spot. So,
wow.
So, I grew up with a very liberal education. I was exposed to all the stuff from a very young age. So I've always had a sort of a predilection to all these sorts of things.
I find it interesting among researchers, you all have a predilection amongst you.
No, I know some researchers that are actual boneheads. They don't have a psychic bone in their body. Oh God, yeah. Most of them, most of the ones that I know that I hang out with, or pick their brains, they do. Although Nick Redfern, I don't think he would say I don't think he would say he was psychic by any stretch. Have any sort of inclinations or abilities or tendencies in that direction. Nick Redfern's notoriously there's a number of people that are in the field that I think are as psychic as rocks.
I actually agree with you there. It just depends. I'm opinionated about this, so I'm going to be gentle here, okay?
That definitely are, no question.
Some of you are really good empirical researchers. In other words, you've stated this very clearly. You write what you know. You don't add the things, you put it down as you see it and hear it. You document everything.
I
as
stick
it
to what
is.
the facts can
That's
demonstrate.
right.
And
A
that's
good
why,
researcher is that way. Then there
yeah,
are sensationalists. Then there
yeah.
are people who are just wanting the notoriety or whatever. And they're the dumbest rocks ones as far as I'm concerned, because if
There
they
are
had
plenty of
bone
them.
in their body, they'd know better than to be acting that way. So, and
Yeah.
like I said, it's just my
Well,
opinion.
I've always felt that since it's such a touchy subject matter to begin with, that you've
Right.
got to be any wobble in the force, any sort of observer effect that you're going to introduce into the equation is really going to create problems. And that's why, 35 years later, here I am, with my reputation and my integrity completely intact. And, you know,
Yeah.
some pretty serious people have either publicly or not so publicly supported my work monetarily and otherwise. Billionaires don't fund sensationalists. Let's put it that
No.
way.
Right.
And when they do, they want to know about the other people that they're funding to make sure that they're not sensationalists, because they have a sneaking hunch that some of them are.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what I'd like to do is pop up some questions from
sure,
chat.
fire away, man.
Um,
I love that's my favorite part of the program.
Yeah, and some of these are a little off topic, and I knew this was going to come up, and it's been mentioned a couple of times in chat already, because the internet, of course, is all abuzz about the recent Bayside Mall alleged sightings on January 3rd, was it, of ETs. I am skeptical. I actually believe with what Octopus with Friends is saying. People with fireworks mistaken as gunfire, no proof of a single thing. I haven't heard any good reporting on it.
I haven't even heard about it, so it shows how in touch, how psychic I am.
I think everything is alarming to everybody now, and it's like the Chinese balloons. Everybody wants it to be a UFO situation. Everybody, because now they know that there is a serious situation with that, and that they exist. Now they're going to see them everywhere. It's like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. Oh no, it was that. And people will just talk, and it's not good when that happens, because
I have a lot of problems with that aspect of this field. In fact, many people consider me a debunker, because I just like, if the facts don't hold up, and if there's not a body of evidence to corroborate, an event or
right.
some aspect of a report or whatever, I can't go with it, and
Yeah, that's why I wanted to have you on. We're pretty picky about who we bring onto the
yeah,
show. Because
I'm a real tough nut. If my database is 100 pages long of very small type, and it had to have eight points of data to get in there. So it's if I had included every story that nobody had that somebody didn't have a date for instance, or family stories, or stories that they heard in school, or wow, I heard this story, so and so had this happen. And if I can't get so and so to come forward and say yeah, it doesn't make my database.
Right.
And so I'm really proud of that database. It's got a lot of law enforcement officials. It's got scientists. It's got ex-military. It has people that are pillars in their community, mayors of towns, heads of livestock boards. People like that who are unimpeachable. And if they're willing to go on the record and tell you something about a high strange experience that they had, that's gonna make an impression on me, especially if I have other witnesses that have reported something similar from the same area. What's wonderful about the valley is you have perfect sight lines. There's nothing obstructing your view. For 140 miles, you can see 300 miles in the valley, because the tops of the mountains that you're looking at sort of negate the curve of the
it's
earth.
straight out of that advertisement for Close Encounters, with the highway leading off into the endless distance. It looks just like that.
So someone can have a sighting 60 miles south, 80 miles south of you, and you can see that event. It's going to be right above the horizon instead of being directly overhead, maybe for
Right.
the person down
Exactly.
there. But you're able to cross-reference and cross-correlate events so much easier. It's so easy there to do that. And that's one of the things that I had really working for me, in that when you're in a semi-arid desert, you don't have a lot of, with only one person for 7 square miles, you don't have a lot of trees and buildings and hilly terrain that's obscuring your view of the horizon. It's one of the only places that you can go where you can see the horizon or you can see the Milky Way from horizon to horizon, and that's one of the things that I just never will ever not kind of pine for, is that those unobscured views out there. I mean, that's just so the night sky out there. I was lucky. I smoked cigarettes and wouldn't smoke inside, so I was always outside. And constantly people going, how come you see so many things? How come I don't? I said, because I look.
You're outside. You're looking. That's right.
I'm outside. I'm
But
looking.
there's
You're
so many
part of it.
children who
Yeah.
are witnesses and
You're
police,
involved.
night watchmen. And,
So,
all right, well,
okay, shoot another one at me.
yeah, here, this is, of course, bound to come up. You having been pretty much the go-to guy.
Oh my
Clarice
God.
Davidson is asking, this is a loaded question. What do you know about the animal mutilations, and who and why is it being done?
Well, if
And of
there
course,
is something
you
to be
wrote
known
a
about
lot
animal
about that.
mutilations, you're looking at the guy that now probably knows more about it than anyone. And I don't say that lightly. David Perkins, my mentor and my research partner, and comedic straight man and just best friend and stuff. I just lost him in August. Just so bummed about it. Every day I miss him more and more now. He used to know more about it than me, and now he's gone. So by default, and when I say I know everything, I do, even stuff that I don't want to know. I know, which includes a lot of the animal pathology and the forensics, the forensic science and stuff that you just, it's just not for everybody. I think there's multiple groups involved. I think aliens are the least likely group to be involved, although we
Thank
can't.
you. You're right. You're exactly correct.
We can't factor them out. We can't factor them in.
No.
If they're not doing it, why aren't they stopping the ones that are, or whoever it is? So I'm not a believer in aliens. I'm an experiencer. I think that we're dealing with life forms that have been on this planet longer than we have.
Yep.
They're more terrestrial than we are.
Yep.
The reason why they started showing up when we started popping off nuclear weapons is we were putting them in harm's way. I've been saying this for 35 years, and now it's starting to become, I saw Bernard Klostrup, what's his name, the scientist guy that writes articles every now and then. He just came up with an article that, we should start looking at the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. I said, where are you been, pal? I had a long conversation with Matt Tones back in the early 2000s, and next thing I know, he's writing a book on cryptoterrestrials. He came up with a new word and then was able to almost write a whole book about it. This is something that I've been pretty adamant about. I don't think we're important enough for anything out there to come here. I think that we're, if anything, there's a do not disturb sign, and avoid this place at all costs. There's probably rules and regulations in the cosmos to stay away from us, from this violent, misogynist, primitive, absolutely, knee-jerk, violent place. Just look what's going on in Gaza right now. So getting back to the mutilations, I know everything that there is to know about it, and I've written the only book that objectively looks at the mystery, and I'm very proud of it. It took 22 years to research and 18 months to write. It was not easy to write. It almost turned me off to writing. Period. Although I'll continue doing book covers. I love my cover.
Wow. I want to tell you something. We're probably the same age. We're doggone close. Were you born? What year were you born?
57.
Okay, I'm 1 year old younger than you. I was born in 58. And the first time I saw a laser, you got to understand, I grew up with scientists, okay? And I had access to things that not many normal children had access to. The first laser that I was shown, I was 8 years old, 7 or 8. I think it was in
Wow.
the second grade, so I would be 7.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember, and I also have an eidetic memory, by the way, that this was being developed for surgical purposes or for other purposes, military, but surgery was the one that they were expressing to us as children in this class that I was in.
Yeah, I'd love to say that all these are done with laser
Yeah.
surgery or
Yeah.
particle beams.
Well, I'm also a registered nurse, and I know a lot about medicine and
No, they're
how
not. They're not. They're
laser
done with sharp.
applications and what you can do with a carcass or an animal that you're. Let's not even go with that description, but see what I'm saying? And it's
The
true.
vast majority are done with a sharp steel or carbide cutting instrument.
Right, but they can electrify it, and they can cauterize instantly. That's
Out of all the
a
cases,
surgical
I only
technique.
had
Yeah,
two cases
yeah,
out of 40 or so that
Yeah.
I know of for sure that high heat was involved, and that was because there was evidence along the incisional line of cooked hemoglobin and what appeared to be cauterized.
All right. Well, we
evidence
just
of
have
cauterization.
we just have about 5 or 10 minutes left, so I want to pop in a few more questions. There aren't a whole lot, but here's one that's very personal, Chris. And JB3 Nunn is asking, perhaps you've covered this and I missed it.
Only one time. Only one time. Yeah.
Have you ever had an out-of-body experience?
One time? Yeah. When I was shaken out of bed by an earthquake after my mom had brought me a book because I was sick in bed with the flu, back visiting the Seattle area for the first time after moving the year before to New York, where I ended up staying for 12 years. And I was going to stay back in Seattle. And I worried myself sick over it, I guess. And I didn't feel well. I was kind of in bed during the day, and I asked my mom to bring me a book. She brought me a book that was the most boring scientific book about what it would be like to be in the Seattle area if a major earthquake would.
Oh,
if the
no.
Cascadian sub,
What prophetic was that? Yeah.
right. And I got shaken. I had the book on my chest and fell asleep. And I got rattled awake by an earthquake. Well, I moved back to New York. So I didn't need to be very psychic on that one. And that night, the first night, as we were driving along the Dalles and those beautiful cliffs that overlook the Columbia down there in Northern Oregon, that night I asked for projected, and just barely the top of my tent held me back, although I could see the stars through it. And the realization of that slammed me back in my body. And my sister and brother-in-law, who I was traveling with, were in the tent next to me, and they said it sounded like I got run over by a truck. The sound I made when I came back in, and they came racing over because they thought something had happened. And I told them what had just happened. They said, "Oh man, here you go again. Are you sure you weren't seeing little stick men?"
Yeah, the ribbing is horrible.
I've
And you
never.
haven't tried to do it ever since?
I have. I did the Monroe heavy sync tapes. I tried a number of times, but I didn't stick with it long enough. I've got enough going on in this body.
Talk to Preston. We have you walking out in a day. I'm not kidding you. Really.
Yeah.
Should you like have a
I
private
love that
conversation?
topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really. All the stuff that involves me personally. I'm having a tough enough time just dealing with my regular, run of the mill, boring life. I moved to
I
the
wouldn't
only
call it
place that
boring.
I know that had no mutilations. I'm in New York. There's never been a case here.
Another question I wanted to ask, which I just find it fascinating, because there was that whole incident on Greeny Mountain with a possible UFO crash.
Oh yeah, the NORAD event.
Yeah, what do you
Oh
think of
man,
all of that? Can
that
you
was one of my
summarize it?
favorite cases. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. There's a two-hour time dilation. Um, the impact and the sighting, or the impact, the noise, and the actual physical effects of the event, which was a few acre sized fire, happened 2 hours before the sighting event, which happened exactly to the second 2 hours later. Now, 120 minutes, it's an arbitrary, you know, figure, I understand, but a retired fighter pilot from SAC, one of our, most decorated strategic air command pilots, saw the 5 to 7 battleship-sized objects that came in, and he plotted them on a map to come down right where the NORAD DSP spy satellite saw a few acre-sized fire, which was being manned at the time by Ron Regehr, who has now become one of my dearest, closest friends. He was working that day and was monitoring the DSP feed, and just happened to be there when they logged this few acre sized fire on the backside of the DSP spy mission. When it comes over the U.S., they look for aberrant, mostly fires, and they thought it was like some forest fire that was starting up, and they immediately called the county sheriff, Rio Grande County, and said, "You got to get up there and check this out. Exhaust all efforts, planes, land, and air." And so as they're going up there, NORAD calls back and goes, "Oh, we gave you the wrong coordinates. It's 20 miles this way." And they're like, "What?" And so they did an about face and went 20 miles away. Of course, there was nothing there. And where the original coordinates were, where the SAC pilot did his figuring where the objects went down, that's where a bunch of witnesses saw, pretty impressive UFO sighting, and just weird, low flying electrical sort of spy plane B-52s, retrofitted B-52s, were flown over the area. There was temporary fencing. There was convoys of military vehicles. Took something out of there. This was, to me, the dark horse, the most important UFO story of 1994. And nobody, I mean, I tried to get people to pay attention to this. How often does NORAD call up and report something that turns out to be a battleship-sized flotilla of objects that creates a few acre-sized fire, and then calling search and rescue from a county to go check it out, and then telling them it's elsewhere, and having two people. Now, this is rumored. I did get confirmation on one death, but two people that were on duty that day at NORAD died mysteriously pretty quickly after the fact, including a woman who was pregnant, had just gotten her second bar. She'd just been promoted from lieutenant to captain, and she may have been in charge of the shift that was on. But boy, I got slam dunk shut that's the first time I've ever talked about that publicly. I got slam dunked on that, trying to figure that out, get confirmation on it. But that was a huge, major event that happened. I even got a chance to fly over the area a couple 3 weeks later in a helicopter, and when we were on our way back to Crestone, it was a little 2-man helicopter. I ran out of batteries. I'd been videotaping, and I looked over at the pilot, and he's got his eyes half closed, his hands behind his head, and he's steering the chopper with his knees. And I had noticed him doing that. I said, "What are you doing? I thought helicopters are hard to fly." And he said, "No, it's easy here." And he opened his knees up, and the chopper started wiggling around. He says, keep your feet off the rudders and go ahead, have some fun. So I got to fly the helicopter, and I saw the herd of cows, and I was buzzing it and kind of did a little bit. I kept going in a straight line. I just buzzed the herd. And the next day, somebody brought the Rocky Mountain News over and said, "Wow, there was a black helicopter stalking a herd of yesterday."
I know. Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and then I look at the time, and the sheriff tried to catch me, and a couple deputies chased after me, and I was reported as it was a dark purple helicopter, but anything dark against the blue of the sky is going to look black. So I was actually reported as a black helicopter, harassing a herd of cattle. I still have the article somewhere.
Well, unfortunately, Christopher, we are out of time pretty much. So I wanted to give you a chance to promote anything you wanted to promote.
I don't do that. I don't promote.
Right.
Just become part of the solution. UFODAP, 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 the UFO Data Acquisition Project. We're now up to 88 installations around the world with multi-sensor, with I think 15 multi-sensor data acquisition packages with recording, event tracking and motion tracking software for cameras, and you can get your magnetometers hooked in, up and run your radio frequency spectrum analyzers. We've got gravitometers, accelerometers to see if the Earth's gravity has shifted during the sighting event. We're on 4 continents, in 20-some countries, and 21 states as well.
Wow.
UFODAP.
Thank you, Chris.
Very cool. Yeah, well, thanks very much for coming on the show. There's so much we didn't cover.
You didn't have to have me on about 10 times to even begin to
Yeah,
touch it.
well, we're going to do that. We're gonna get some more dates out of you. So
If you don't mind, we would love
We
that.
just licked the tip of the iceberg.
absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for watching the Light Gate
Bye
tonight.
bye. Thanks for having
We
me on.
love
guys.
you. We were broadcasting to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at 107.7 FM on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. I want y'all to have a wonderful weekend, and we are going to get Chris to come back. Mwah. Bye.